Last time it was the future. This time it's the past. Whoa, this is heavy. Hi YouTubers, Andy Malone, MVP, Microsoft certified trainer. First of all, I got a shout out. Thanks so much to everybody who's subscribed to the channel. You guys are absolutely amazing. I'm going to make 3,000 subscribers. That means so much to me. I want to shout out to everybody from India, everybody from the US. You guys absolutely rock. So if you've not subscribed, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and send my numbers up. And I really appreciate all the great comments that you've come out with. Last time we talked about Windows 365, that new cloud PC from Microsoft that I think is pretty revolutionary. I've got some pretty cool sessions planned for that in the not too distant future. But this time, I often get asked the question, what was it like back in the day? So, well, I thought, well, you know, I could show you pictures, but what I thought we might do is actually go back to the day. Okay. So are you ready for a little time travel? Okay, are you ready? Here we go. So professionally, this was my very first version of Windows. This was Windows 3.1. And as you can see, quite different to the Windows of today. We just simply had this program manager. And you can see, this is a very early version of File Explorer or File Manager as it was called then. But the familiar folders, you see we have the C drive or the A drive, and we have typically folders and subfolders off that. DOS files, autoexec.bat, auto-executable file, and a configuration sys file. So it was just very simple, a couple of files in those days. And as you can see, you can select files. You could change drives. For example, the A drive and the B drive were typically your floppy drives. And of course, as today, the C drive was your hard disk. And you could copy, cut, and you can see that we didn't have the control plus keys and things like that. That control plus and C, it was the F keys. Control panel, of course, still exists in Windows, and a lot of these files, programs still exist. Fonts, ports, the mouse, the keyboard, the desktop settings, of course. Again, look how old this looks. Wow. So, you can have different patterns. You didn't really have the funky wallpaper that we had in those days. We did have some pretty cool screensavers, though. This was always one of my favorite ones, the classic flying windows. And I just remember every time we went into a computer store, that the faster those ran, you knew the faster the processor was in the machine, which meant the more expensive it was, of course. So other things that now you'll notice here, there's no networking. There was no networking in Windows 3.1. So it was really just personal computing. There was nothing in there. You had your drivers, the date, time, and so on in there as well. And then, of course, you had your programs, so Microsoft Office and so on. They were little program groups there as well. We had a few cool games, not the games that we have today, of course. It was pretty basic. So what next? Well, the next stage was, of course, to do an upgrade. And 1995 was when everything changed, and really, going back to this very early 1995, and this is a long time ago, this is like 30 years ago now, and you go back to this file, and immediately you see the opening screen. You go, hey, this is starting to look like Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10. It was the first time that we introduced a number of unique things that we still have today. Networking was the big thing here, and as you'll see in a second. So just wait for this to come up. Yeah, obviously we've just done an upgrade. Just verify your time. So you can see this is starting to look like something quite familiar what you use. Look at that. You've got the start bar there, the start button. Of course, with Windows 11 now, that's moved to the center of the screen. But we had this start button. And again, you have the run menu. So you can see it's very, very similar to Windows 10. You've got the help, you can find things, files and folders, you've got control panel, your documents, your various programs in there, including Windows Explorer. So they renamed Windows Explorer. No longer do we have those old config.sys files and command.com. You can see that those have been renamed to .dos files. So it's very much the infrastructure had changed, the file infrastructure. It was now using the registry for all of its desktop settings. Control panel, of course, again, a few big changes here. The fact that we had now USB, Universal Serial Bus, plug and play, or PNP, of course. Sometimes it was referred to as plug and pray because you didn't know if it was going to work or not. And again, here is the, you'll see familiarities here now. So I can go ahead with the screensaver, the background, appearance. And it looks all very familiar, doesn't it? This was always one of my favorite desktop settings, the setup screen. And then click OK. And there we go. Cool. Right, now this was revolutionary because for the first time we also had networking in here. But look, when you opened up the network here, there was nothing here. Look, so the first thing you needed to do, this was all manual, of course, in those days. You needed to go in and add in your actual network adapter card. So I'm going to add in a 3COM Etherlink 3 adapter card here. Now, if you didn't have, Windows came with a certain number of drivers, of course, but if you didn't have it, you needed to have the disk, and that was a floppy disk, of course, with the drivers on it. So once you'd installed the adapter, the next thing you needed to install the protocol. Now, this always came with it. You can see IPX, SPX. This was a Novell networking protocol. And the problem with that, it was a really chatty protocol. So it was no good for wide area networks. So it wasn't long. Microsoft had their own NetBEUI protocol. That was just for Windows, for like a work group type protocol. But this was the real protocol, the TCP/IP. This kind of changed everything. And this is the protocol that we all still use today. So typically you would go ahead and you would install it, and it would ask you for an IP address. So the IP address, very similar to your phone number. So part of it was your network, and then the other part of it was the host machines on that network, followed by a subnet mask. And you could specify this address either manually or more realistically through what we call a DHCP server. So you can see we would have to now typically manually switch that on if you wanted things like file and printer sharing. So if you want to share your documents and your files and things, you would have to give specific permissions. So you can see, if we suddenly had to time travel back in time, back to the 1990s, you could actually find your way around. Naming your computer, of course, give it a name, give it a work group name. And this was very much a kind of, working domestic type of machine. Windows NT, Windows NT Workstation was very much the business version of this, but it had a very, very similar interface. So there we go. Windows 3.1 and Windows 95. There's nothing like a bit of nostalgia, isn't there? A question for you. Here's a question. What was your first version of Windows? In fact, what was your first operating system? Can you remember? For me, my first computer was a BBCB. I bet you can't beat that, can you? Okay, well, I really hope you enjoyed that little bit of nostalgia. Next time we're going into the future again, and we're going to take another look at the brand new Windows 365. Comments, questions, anything at all, get them down below. You know I love your feedback, okay? And as always, if you're not a subscriber, go ahead, because many of you are not. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, and you won't miss out on any future postings. Hey, listen, I really appreciate you dropping by, and you stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Thanks for dropping by. Hope you enjoyed the video. Go ahead and click on the subscribe button and ring that bell, and you won't miss a thing. See you next time.